The evening started with her thanking Muriel, the man she was with, as they celebrated their 9th anniversary. It felt a little awkward since they had agreed not to celebrate this year, and she admitted she hadn't prepared anything. She mused that time truly flew, unable to believe it had been 9 years since they got married. Ian smiled and playfully assured her that even if he were born again, he would still marry her. A moment later, Ian asked if she was truly happy right now. She was startled by the sudden question, wondering why he would ask that. She told him she felt amazing, but she noticed Muriel didn't seem to feel the same. Muriel then revealed his real gift for the anniversary, presenting her with a large envelope. She jokingly asked if he had written her a letter. Her surprise quickly turned into shock as she realized the contents of the envelope were documents for a consent for ownership transfer of a building. Muriel reminded her that she had always wanted to relocate and expand her gallery. He told her he was giving her the building in Samcheongdong. The revelation completely stunned her as she knew that was his most cherished building, one he had always refused to sell. He gave a knowing smile and told her the reason he never sold it was that he had always planned to give it to her, waiting for the perfect timing, which he felt was now. She was overwhelmed, but Muriel clarified that the transfer couldn't happen immediately. He explained he would switch the ownership over once the remodeling was complete and everything was settled, which he instantly agreed to. He mentioned he was planning to leave the remodeling work to a junior he knew whom he thought would get along well with her, and she happily accepted. The night then shifted to their bedroom. She was breathing heavily, lost in the intense, passionate moment. Muriel whispered that she was beautiful that night. After their love-making, he held her close and asked how her day was. She sighed contentedly, assuring him it was truly the best day and the best wedding anniversary ever. Later, as she slept, Muriel quietly slipped out of bed and left the room. She woke up shortly after, realizing he was gone. She saw him walking out of the living area, briefcase in hand. She called out to him, startling him, and asked where he was going. He stopped and turned, telling her he went to the office. He said he had been busy lately starting a new business. She immediately worried about him overworking and told him he needed to take care of his health, suggesting she should get him some medicine. She also chided him gently, asking him to wake her next time, as she was startled not to find him in bed. Muriel pulled her into a tight hug, telling her she was all he had. He rubbed his head against her shoulder in a familiar gesture. She asked him playfully why he was like that as he kissed her. He replied that seeing her worried about him kind of excited him. As he pulled away, a scent caught her attention. Shampoo. Her expression changed as she asked if he had washed up at the office. Later in her office, she quickly dismissed his story, realizing with a cold feeling that he must have been with that woman. She remembered seeing a text message from her husband earlier. The text sent at 1:23 a.m. "Who looks better? Of course it's you, honey." She stood there alone, holding her phone, the realization of his infidelity sinking in. Her husband rushed back into the bedroom, looking for his phone. From that day forward, Muriel's phone was always locked. She hadn't even been able to confirm who the other woman was, realizing she was in a situation she never imagined. But something about the picture felt familiar. The flashy pink nails and the whole atmosphere around the woman. She knew she had to think rationally. With the gallery, relocation and expansion coming up, everything she had built would collapse if she divorced him now. She couldn't let things turn out like they had last time. Later, while at work, a colleague walked in and cheerfully announced big news. SA was getting married. As Ian listened to the excitement, a familiar scent hit her, the same shampoo Muriel had smelled of that morning. She saw the co-worker Sina wearing an engagement ring. Another colleague joked that Sina's boyfriend had proposed, which basically meant they were married. Sina apologized for not telling her first and sheepishly showed off the ring. Everyone congratulated Sina on her upcoming marriage. Sina explained the wedding wasn't right away because her boyfriend still had things to sort out. Ian felt a rush of disbelief, chastising herself for even suspecting Sina just because of her pink nails. While in a taxi heading to the interior consultation for her gallery, Muriel called her. She asked where he was and he apologized, saying he was suddenly swamped with work and that she might have to handle the consultation alone. She resigned herself to the situation, knowing he was facing another late night. She told him she would go on her own. He emphasized that the junior he knew would do a great job and would suit her style perfectly. Again, apologizing for not being able to to go with her. She told him not to overwork himself and hung up. Then she remembered that Sina had said she was staying late to finish things up at the office. Ian immediately told the driver to turn the car around. As they approached the office, she saw Mewell's car there. Her hand trembled as she held her phone, the sickening realization dawning on her that it could actually be Sina. She burst into the CEO's office. There she saw Mewell and Sina engaged in a frantic sexual encounter on the office desk, completely undressed and oblivious to her presence. Her eyes went wide with shock and horror. Mewell and SA stopped, suddenly realizing someone was there. Sa asked him why he was acting so suddenly. Mewell looked completely enraged and screamed that he would kill whoever the person was if he caught him. Ian stumbled backward outside of the building and into the pouring rain. Her glasses fell off and tears mixed with the raindrops on her face. She whispered their names. Boon Mayal Yuna, heartbroken, wondering how they could do this to her. She stumbled, falling to the wet ground. Lying there in the rain, she thought that divorce was the only choice. It would be foolish to stay with a cheating husband, but the thought of divorce brought another crushing realization. What would happen to her gallery? She remembered Mewell promising her the building in Samcheong-dong. What would become of her gallery if she left him? A young man suddenly appeared, holding an umbrella over her. He called out to her, asking if she was all right. He knelt down to check on her in the rain, still reeling from the shock of what she had just witnessed. Ian was suddenly aware of the handsome young man holding an umbrella over her in the pouring rain. He was young Hoon, the head designer at Hoon Interiors. It hit her that this was the junior Mayal had mentioned, the one scheduled for her consultation. The designer had come to the gallery after being unable to reach her and was shocked to find her collapsed on the wet ground. Ian's mind raced, wondering how much he might know if he had been hiding nearby when Mewell and Sina were together in the office. She feared he might have witnessed everything too. This man looked so much like Mewell. It was disorienting. She had to talk herself down, reassuring herself that he was just someone who looked like Mal music, and there was no way it could be him. They went back to the interior design office, which was a bit messy because they had recently relocated. Young Hoon offered her a black hoodie to put over her soaking clothes. She accepted the thoughtful gesture, noting that she was already soaked anyway. As they settled down for the consultation, young Hoon asked what kind of design she had in mind for the gallery. Ian struggled to focus, caught between suspicion and frustration. Was he pretending not to know what happened, or did he genuinely have no idea? Unable to concentrate, she apologized and asked if they could postpone the consultation because she wasn't feeling well. He smiled kindly and agreed right away. Before they left, young Hun noticed the injury on her ankle from when she fell outside. He knelt down, insisting on taking care of the wound himself, even when she protested. As he gently applied cream and a bandage, she flinched, and he apologized for not being gentle enough, noting that the injury was worse than he thought and must have hurt. A deep blush spread across her cheeks from his intimate touch. She thanked him for his care and he offered to walk her home. Once they arrived, she thanked him again for bringing her. He told her not to worry about rescheduling the consultation, saying they could meet whenever she was free. After they said goodbye, Ian stood alone in her doorway and saw a text message pop up on her phone from Mal asking how the consultation went and saying he was sorry he couldn't go with her, ending it with, "Love you." The words, which she had believed with all her heart for over 10 years now, felt like nothing but lies. A bitter, broken laugh escaped her as tears streamed down her face. She looked at the picture of her husband and her on their wedding day, the contrast to her current reality shattering her. Meanwhile, Yang Hun, still standing outside her home, received a phone call. Snorts, he answered, confirming he was speaking to Mika director. Bayun Young Hoon informed him that he had just seen Madam arrive home. Later, Ian was suddenly lost in a past romantic memory, rubbing a pregnant belly and talking to her partner Taman. She couldn't believe they were having a baby. Taman smiled, agreeing that it felt too unreal, and playfully asked why she was crying again. The moment was tender, full of smiles and close kisses. Suddenly, Ian startled awake, realizing it was just a dream. Miel was standing over her, asking if she was okay. She quickly explained that she must have dozed off while waiting for him, asking if he had just gotten in. He told her that he was having trouble escaping work, complaining that he didn't know why they kept holding him up. He Snorts gently scolded her for sleeping on the sofa sofa, reminding her that it gives her nightmares, and told her not to wait up next time. Ian looked over at him, feeling utterly disgusted. Mual then noticed the dark hoodie she was wearing and asked where it came from, saying he hadn't seen it before. Knowing that telling the truth would just invite more of his weird comments, she quickly lied, saying she just picked it up around the gallery because it was cold and raining. Mual narrowed his eyes, pointing out that it looked like a man's size. She tried to play it off, explaining that most clothes are made loosely these days, unlike the tight fits he wears. He looked thoughtful for a moment before declaring that he absolutely hated the thought of her wearing another man's clothes. Ian snapped back, telling him to stop saying such ridiculous things. She thought to herself that he was being ridiculous, only seeing what he wanted to see when he was the one who had just cheated with Santa. She felt intensely uneasy, wondering why she was the one feeling that way when he was the guilty party. Mual suggested they wash up and go to sleep since she was tired, telling her he would go first. Later, while they were in the bathroom, Mual initiated to get physical. She gasped, feeling his body closed behind her. He reminded her of their promise to maintain a regular, intimate schedule. She felt utterly miserable, hating that she was enduring this right after music. He was messing around with young Sina. She was relieved, however, that Mual seemed completely unaware of what she had witnessed. He began to talk, asking how the counseling with the interior manager went today. She immediately questioned why he was bringing that up now. He teased her, asking if she was embarrassed. He told her that she belonged only to him and had to do this only with him for the rest of her life, leaning in for a kiss. Ian hated kissing him even more now. He urged her to take off her clothes. The next day, Ian was at the office when two workers were busy disinfecting and removing the CEO's desk. She heard them say Sina had ordered the desk to be thrown out completely, claiming that even disinfecting it wouldn't be enough because they might have laid eggs overnight. The workers thought the desk was too expensive to waste. Ian met with her lawyer at the law firm. She stated that she didn't want to divorce Meal. The lawyer informed her that since Meal committed adultery, he was the at-fault spouse, and the at-fault spouse has a high possibility of losing even if they file a divorce lawsuit. The lawyer explained that she couldn't get a divorce unless he agreed to it. Therefore, the lawyer advised her to make him even more of an at-fault spouse, so he would surely lose if he filed for divorce. She needed to maintain a poker face and gather as much evidence of the affair as possible. Ian realized she would have to pretend nothing was wrong in front of Mayal and Sina until she gathered the evidence. She pulled out a cigarette and a lighter, wondering how long she would have to keep up the charade. When young Hyun, the designer, appeared, he noticed her struggle and lit her cigarette for her. She was taken aback by his sudden appearance, wondering why they kept bumping into each other since the office was so near the gallery. He smiled and asked if she would also light his cigarette, and she agreed. As they stood together, two construction workers passed by, and young Hun introduced them as his team, explaining they were coming back from a site job. He asked if her knee was all right, and she assured him the manager took good care of it. He lingered for a moment, saying he kept thinking about whether his hoodie was still okay. She laughed, assuring him she had washed it and would return it soon, to which he joked there was no rush. Just as she was about to head inside, young Hun stopped her and lowered his voice. He asked if it would be troublesome for her if her husband found out that the director Boone was asking whether he ran into her at the gallery last night. Ian's eyes widened, her poker face visibly cracking under the weight of his question. Ian felt her blood run cold when young Hun repeated Mual's question about whether he ran into her at the gallery the night before. She quickly regained her composure and challenged him, asking what he thought he said. She realized they had clearly spoken on the phone since Mual was the one who suggested young Hun for the interior work. Ian insisted they had not run into each other, reminding him that the interior office meeting was the first time they had met. She pressed him to understand that it was not his place to interfere in her business. Young Hyun confirmed her statement about the first meeting and admitted that he told director Boone the same thing. He explained that having worked on so many projects, he had gained a sense for relationship troubles and decided that pretending not to notice was the right move at first. Ian turned the question back on him, noting that Mayal must think they were close if he was asking him such things. Young Hyun then reached out, music, gently brushing something from her hair near her temple, explaining that because it was spring, there was a lot of pollen flying around. She pulled away slightly, telling him they were not that close. She quickly changed the subject, asking when they should reschedule the consultation. Young Hyun agreed and promised he would wait until then before heading back toward the office. Back in the quiet, Ian found herself standing in the staff-only area of the gallery next to the CCTV monitors. She realized that if Mual was asking about her being there, she must have been caught on the CCTV music the night before. Yet, Mual had later casually engaged in intimacy with her, even though he knew she was there. She reasoned that perhaps Mual was so flustered when she appeared that he forgot about the CCTV entirely. She checked the CCTV recordings, flipping through the feeds. To her surprise or perhaps misfortune, the CCTV had been turned off. She discovered that whenever Sina was working late after music, the rest of the staff left. Sina would turn off all the CCTV cameras in the gallery. Ian counted 6 instances in just 1 month, deducing that each time Mual must have been in the gallery with Sina. The thought of their infidelity made her clench her fist in disgust. Despite the sickening realization, she found a small relief in knowing that she hadn't been caught in the act of trying to catch them. She tried to distract herself, commanding her racing thoughts to stop. She wondered precisely when the relationship between Mual and Sina had started. Was it when Sina first started her internship at the gallery, or even earlier when Sina was still in college? A painful memory surfaced. Sina attending Ian's wedding. Sina called her teacher and commented on how pretty Ian looked in her wedding dress. Sina later playfully complained that Ian should wear makeup, acting like a silly high school student. Music. Ian had been focused on her handsome husband Mual as he gently touched Sina's head, telling her to stop talking nonsense. Suddenly, the present snapped back into focus. Ian was in the bathroom trying to catch her breath and stop her emotional turmoil. She was trying to stifle the urge to vomit. Sina walked in and heard her retching sounds from inside the stall. Sina asked if she was okay, saying Ian had been making gagging sounds and didn't look well. Ian tried to assure her she was fine, but Sina's concerned look deepened. Sina's eyes widened as she whispered a new question. Could it be, "Are you pregnant?" Ian smiled weakly and told Sina that only Sina knew the answer to that. Sina clapped her hands together excitedly, saying, "Congratulations," before innocently asking if Mr. Bun Mayal knew the news too. Ian put a hand on Sina's shoulder, still smiling before turning and walking away, leaving the question hanging in the air. Sina watched her go, a strange expression on her face as she rubbed her own stomach. Ian was lost in thought about Sina, remembering how her former student lived with her grandmother and struggled financially. Ian worked part-time as an art instructor to pay for her own tuition when she first met Sina. Ian recalled being lenient with Sina when she fell behind on her tuition. Sina was affectionate, promising to work really hard and thanking her teacher. Because she felt pity for the young woman, Ian tutored Sina so she could get into art school. Sina eventually entered the same university as Ian, and after graduating came to work at the gallery Ian ran. Sina thanked Ian profusely, telling her she owed it all to her and would definitely repay the debt. The irony was painful as Sina later entered into a secret relationship with Ian's husband. Meanwhile, Mual and Sina were arguing. Sina confronted Mual, demanding why he had been intimate with Ian, contradicting his claim that he couldn't even perform with Ian. Mual seemed taken back, but maintained he could only truly connect with Sina. Santa, crying and distraught, yelled that Mual was a liar because he had promised their closeness was exclusive. Mual tried to calm her down, asking what was wrong. Sina angrily revealed that Ian had claimed she was expecting a baby. Mual's expression tightened as he whispered Ian's name. He demanded Sina explain slowly what she meant by Ian being pregnant. Sina explained that today at the gallery, Ian was ill in the restroom, so Sina asked if she was pregnant, and Ian had confirmed it. Mual burst out laughing, dismissively calling Sina gullible. He insisted that Ian couldn't be pregnant and was clearly lying, adding that Ian had always been skilled at lying without showing any emotion. Sina, still upset, repeated Mual's assurance, asking if he was absolutely sure Ian was not telling the truth. Mual embraced her, assuring her that the only person he wanted to start a family with was Sina. He kissed her aggressively aggressively pulling her closer. Sina initially resisted music, saying she wasn't in the mood and was going home. Mewol continued, touching her intimately until her resolve broke. She eventually gave in, urging him to continue as their passionate encounter intensified. Mewol was in the bathroom toweling off after a shower, smiling to himself. He was still thinking about Ian's supposed pregnancy, wondering why she would lie about it to Sina. For 9 years it had never happened, no matter how hard she tried. So he questioned why she would suddenly say it now. Unaware of his thoughts, Ian was in the kitchen. She poured a glass of wine, thinking it didn't matter anymore now that Mewol was cheating. Just then Mewol came storming in, shouting her name. He urgently asked if she was pregnant. Ian realized Sina must have already told him. Mewol held up the test, frantically pointing out that it showed 2 lines. Ian simply sighed, pointing out that he was the one who got the tests mixed up again, checking them every month. She reminded him he was preparing for a baby. This cycle too, wasn't he? Miles, still confused, hugged her and asked if she wasn't pregnant after all. He then pulled back slightly and told her it was okay, even if they didn't have a child, and that she shouldn't push herself anymore. Meanwhile, Sina was having a furious meltdown somewhere else, screaming and throwing things off a vanity table. She couldn't believe Ian had lied about the pregnancy and was pacing. Realizing that only she knew Ian's true medical history, Sina remembered that Ian hadn't been able to conceive since her miscarriage years ago, which was why they didn't have children. Sina was furious that Ian, unable to get pregnant, had been lying. A sly smile curled on her lips as she mused that if she were to get pregnant, that would be something to see. Back home, Ian knew she had no choice but to pretend everything was normal. She had made up her mind. She would find evidence of her worthless husband's affair and make sure he was held responsible as the at-fault spouse. More importantly, she intended to protect her gallery. Ian went into her office and started doing research on collecting affair evidence. She read advice online which warned her not to show her hand or rush and to always stay cold and rational. The advice also suggested checking the phone, car and navigation history while cautioning against using recorders or private detectives due to the risk of a counter-suit. For the past few days, Ian had been trying to gather proof of his affair. She found that the dash cam and the navigation history had been wiped clean. She even went through his credit card statements, but there was nothing suspicious or any trace she could use. She slumped back in her chair, frustrated, thinking she needed to get into Miles' phone, but she couldn't exactly knock him out cold to do it. Her phone vibrated with a text from her husband saying he had an urgent meeting and would be late again tonight, and told her not to wait up. Meanwhile, Sina was taking a bubble bath with Miles. She brought up her suspicions, suggesting it might have been Ian who showed up at the gallery. She pointed out that it was strange Ian lied about being pregnant and that the way Ian cleaned up the CEO's office was odd. Mewil dismissed her worries, telling her Ian was probably just jealous because Sina was young and pretty. He assured her it wasn't Ian. Sina, slightly relieved, continued to seek Mewil's affection. Later, Ian was out alone, drinking and contemplating her situation. She didn't want to go home, and her chest felt tight with the stress of having no one to confide in. At home and at the gallery, she had to keep acting like she didn't know anything. She wondered if she could really handle everything alone. As she poured another drink, the designer young Hun suddenly appeared at her table, asking if she was drinking alone. He offered to join her for a glass, noting he only drank occasionally. Ian smiled, her earlier melancholy lifting slightly under his attention. As he settled in, the manager brought up her husband. He noted that director Bayan must be incredibly busy lately, especially with starting a new business. He pointed out that this busyness was the reason she was eating alone. But then he flipped the narrative. He raised his shot glass, his eyes locking onto hers, and said that thanks to the director's absence, it was nice that he got to eat with her instead. Ian laughed, perhaps a bit nervously, at his boldness. Internally, however, her mind was racing. She looked at him over the rim of her glass, analyzing his behavior. She wondered what was up with him, thinking back to their previous interactions. The thought crossed her mind, could it be that he was interested in her? She studied his face as he drank. He looked so young to her. Curiosity got the better of her, and she asked him directly how old he was. The manager paused, looking down at his glass as if the answer was written in the alcohol. He hesitated, muttering a tentative 32. Ian burst out laughing, teasing him for not even knowing his own age. Turning the tables, he asked for her age. Ian hesitated for a split split second, her eyes drifting away as she admitted she was 36. She laughed it off, saying she had forgotten for a moment, but the manager was quick with the flattery. He insisted she didn't look it at all. Ian returned the compliment, telling him he didn't look like he was in his 30s either. The manager leaned in closer, his gaze intense and steady. He asked how old he looked to her then. Ian flushed under his scrutiny, guessing 27 or 28. With a playful smile, he decided that from now on he would say he was 27. He suggested they drop the formalities, trying to bridge the distance between them. Ian reminded him that she was 9 years older, a playful pout on her face as she rested her chin in her hand. He brushed it off, telling her to forget the age gap. The mood was light, the alcohol doing its work, and they agreed to order another bottle. But then the conversation took a sharp turn. The manager, his expression shifting from playful to curious, asked a question that cut deep. He asked her what she had liked about director Bayan that made her marry him. Ian froze. She asked him why he was asking, defensiveness creeping into her voice. He shrugged, leaning his chin on his hand, simply saying he was curious, but his eyes were sharp, watching her reaction. Ian struggled to find an answer. She stammered, admitting that now that she thought about it, she didn't quite know what to say. The silence stretched between them. Unable to articulate her feelings in the present, Ian's mind drifted back to the past. The scene shifted to a funeral. A portrait of a young man, close relative, sat amidst white chrysanthemums. In the memory, Ian was collapsed on the floor in traditional mourning clothes, sobbing uncontrollably. Beside her stood Mayal. He looked younger, solemn and protective. He wasn't the cheating husband of today. He was a pillar of strength. He held her as she cried, his face pressed against her head, sharing in her grief. The memory shifted again to a hospital room. Ian was sitting up in a hospital bed, looking pale and hollow. Mayal was there, sitting beside her. He was holding a spoon, blowing on hot food to cool it down before feeding her. He looked worried, sweating slightly, trying desperately to take care of her. It was these moments of care, when she was at her absolute lowest, that answered the manager's question, even if she couldn't say the words out loud. Her mind drifted back to simpler days, moments that felt like a lifetime ago. She remembered standing in a convenience store, watching Mayal through the glass as he waved at her with a goofy, unburdened smile. There was no pretense then, just a boy who was happy to see her. The memory shifted to the day she walked down the aisle. She saw herself in her wedding dress, looking back with a smile that was full of hope and trust. And she saw him, the Mayal of the past, looking at her with a gentle, steady gaze that promised forever. In that moment, the answer to the manager's question crystallized in her heart, painful and clear. She hadn't married him for money or status. She married him because, in a world that often felt unstable, he felt permanent. She believed with every fiber of her being that he would never leave her side. The cold night air outside the restaurant snapped her back to the present, though the alcohol still hummed in her veins. They stood on the sidewalk outside the Galbatang place, the remnants of their meal and conversation lingering between them. Ian tried to regain her composure, fumbling with the social script. She mentioned that she had intended to pay, offering a polite thank you to the manager for the meal instead. The manager, however, was smooth, stepping into the space she tried to create. He brushed off her gratitude, insisting that next time the bill would be on him. He didn't let the moment end there. He pushed for more, suggesting they eat together from time to time, just like they had today. Ian, wary and perhaps sensing the dangerous undercurrents, offered a non-committal deflection, asking if they should only do so if the chance arises. The manager offered to take her home, his voice low and solicitous. Ian immediately put up a wall, refusing his offer and stating she would take a taxi instead. She turned to leave, trying to put distance between them, but her body betrayed her. The alcohol, combined with the emotional toll of the evening, made the world tilt. She swayed, her footing lost on the pavement. With a small gasp, she tipped forward, gravity taking hold. But before she could hit the ground, a strong arm wrapped around her, halting her fall with practiced ease. The manager had caught her, his grip firm and assured. He held her there for a moment, his voice cutting through her haze as he noted that she had been stumbling a lot lately. Held in his arms, Ian looked up. Her vision was swimming, and for a heartbreaking second, the face looking down at her wasn't the manager's. It was him. It was the Mayal she had lost, the protective, attentive man from her memories. The resemblance was uncanny, a cruel trick of the light and her own longing. She found herself staring, unable to look away, thinking over and over how much this younger man resembled her husband. The manager noticed her intensity. He gazed back, asking softly why she was staring at him like that. The atmosphere shifted. The protective gesture morphed into something heavier, more charged. charged. The manager looked at her, his eyes scanning her flushed face. He observed that she seemed quite drunk. His hand lingered, his presence enveloping her. Then he made his move, his voice dropping to a whisper that blurred the line between concern and seduction. He asked if they should rest a little before she went home. It was a loaded question, an invitation into the dangerous space she had been skirting all night.